The star system of Elder was alive with activity as the celestial convergence neared its zenith. Orbiting a dying star, the grand arena of the convergence stood suspended in space, an otherworldly coliseum carved from the core of an ancient moon. Its translucent walls shimmered with cosmic energy, glowing as if alive with the pulse of the universe itself. The arena, known as the Void Nexus, had witnessed centuries of legendary battles, sacred rituals, and galactic tournaments. Yet, this year was different. This time, something unspoken had brought together an even greater gathering. Hundreds of alien species filled the vast floating platforms surrounding the arena. Transparent skinned beings of light flickered, shifting between forms as they debated strategy with their companions. Slithering serpentine creatures, their scales glistening like precious gemstones, coiled around intricate, gravity-defying stands. Nearby, towering masses of shifting gas and light hovered, communicating in radiant pulses of color. Amidst them all, humanoids from a dozen worlds, some with wings, others with extra limbs, all awaited the grand ritual's climax, the summoning of chaos. At the heart of the arena stood a massive, holographic projection of a twisting galaxy, each star representing a champion, a hero, or savior, until one by one, they would fall. The atmosphere buzzed with anticipation, each participant knowing that this year's winner would not just claim glory, but harness the power of a force greater than any known weapon in the universe, chaos itself. From across the galaxy, the greatest warriors, mystics, and strategists had gathered, but no one could predict the entry of one challenger who would rewrite the rules. The moment chaos itself would become their weapon, a weapon that could reshape existence itself. Kara K. Reynolds, the first human to ever qualify for the celestial convergence, entered the preparation zone with a demeanor that couldn't have been more different from the others. While towering multi-limbed beings with their ceremonial armor and shimmering energy shields glided around the area, Kara, in her simple, worn-out hoodie and cargo pants, casually adjusted her sneakers. She tossed her duffel bag onto the bench and scanned the room, unfazed by the alien stares directed her way. Where others meditated in quiet focus, bending their minds to channel power, Kara was untangling the earbuds of her music player. She wasn't even sure what was on the playlist, but she was pretty sure it involved a lot of classic rock. Not exactly the calming hum of psionic fields or the silent preparation rituals of her competitors. She stretched, cracking her neck in a way that made nearby participants wince. "All right, let's do this," she muttered to herself, looking around for the nearest snack station. A group of alien fighters from a distant galaxy exchanged confused glances as they observed a human who seemed more interested in a late-night snack than the fate of the universe. Kara wasn't here to conform. She was here to win. She wasn't the most skilled. She didn't have centuries of combat training or supernatural abilities, but she had something far more dangerous, an unwavering, unpredictable instinct. "What's up, guys?" Kara called out with a grin, spotting a few other human competitors, none of them looking quite as chill as her. They looked up, some nodding and greeting, others too intimidated by the cosmic weight of the event to acknowledge her. Despite the stakes, despite the ancient power standing around her, Kara couldn't help but feel oddly at home. After all, she didn't need a grandiose cosmic destiny or magical heritage to make an impact, just a lot of willpower and, most importantly, a sense of humor. And right now, that was all she had. But sometimes, that was all you needed. The Celestial Convergence, the most prestigious tournament in the galaxy, was finally underway. Alien species from every corner of the universe gathered at the Nexus Arena, where the brightest and deadliest warriors would face off. This was no mere competition. It was a battle for supremacy, a contest to determine the next leader of the Intergalactic Federation. It had been held every 1,000 years, and legends were made in its arena. At the center of it all stood the invincible champion of the Convergence, Khazur, an ancient, towering warrior from the Xylar star system. His armor, a seamless blend of obsidian and shimmering plasma, glowed with the weight of his experience. With a reputation that spanned millennia and an undefeated record, Khazur was the embodiment of the old ways. Precision, ritual, honor. Combat had been his life for centuries, and he was renowned not only for his skill, but for his strategic genius. His eyes, glowing with the light of long-forgotten stars, held the wisdom of 1,000 battles. Khazur's reign remains unchallenged. The announcer boomed as the crowd erupted in applause. But this year was different. The universe's oldest traditions would be tested by someone entirely new. In stark contrast to the polished, imposing figure of Khazur, Kara Reynolds, the first human to ever make it to Convergence, entered the arena with no grand ceremonial display. The betting odds on her? Statistical impossibility. A human, with no galactic legacy, no ancient techniques, was an absurdity in this contest. She didn't have the honed precision of Khazur's strikes or the mental fortitude of the ancient masters. Instead, Kara was known for her chaotic unpredictability, something that defied the calm rituals of her competitors. The officials whispered among themselves. Her style, chaotic, unpredictable, they said. But that's exactly why she's so dangerous. Kara's strategy? She didn't have one. She didn't know what she was going to do from one moment to the next, except react. The odds were clear. Kara didn't belong here. She was an outlier in a contest dominated by millennia of tradition, a cosmic underdog facing the galaxy's most skilled and disciplined fighter. But there was a fire in her eyes, a certainty that, against all odds, chaos might just be her greatest weapon. And it wasn't just the audience who was watching closely. Khazur observed from the shadows of his regal seat. His fingers tightened on the armrest of his throne as he read through the data on his newest challenger. This human, his voice was low, contemplative. She has no place here. But I will not underestimate her. The tension in the air was thick. It was tradition versus unpredictability, discipline versus chaos. And as the tournament drew nearer, the universe held its breath, waiting to see if Kara Reynolds would be able to shatter the old ways, or if the ancient powers of the galaxy would crush her before she had a chance to even begin. Kara Reynolds had always believed in one thing. Preparation was overrated. While the other competitors in Celestial Convergence spent hours meditating, perfecting their stances, or running simulations of their future matches, Kara was doing something entirely different. She was at the concession stand, sipping an oversized cup of galactic coffee, the kind that could melt your taste buds with its sheer intensity. A few feet away, an entire group of perfectly trained and disciplined fighters, each one glowing with the ethereal light of their species' advanced training, looked on with bewilderment as Kara casually chowed down on a donut-shaped pastry, her gaze lazily drifting over the rules and instructions that had been handed out earlier. Are you not nervous?" One of the competitors, a swift Zalorian with 4 arms, asked as they observed Kara with a mixture of disbelief and confusion. "Nervous? Nah," Kara replied, wiping crumbs from her lips. "I mean, I've faced worse challenges. Like my dad's spaghetti. That stuff could double as building material." The Zalorian blinked, unsure if Kara was joking or somehow was more intimidating than she appeared. Meanwhile, Kara's warm-up routine looked like something out of a comedy skit. She sprawled out on the floor in the middle of the preparation area, flat on her back, staring up at the ceiling. "All right," she said, as if addressing an invisible crowd. "Time for the real training." She began doing what could only be described as spontaneous yoga, wildly exaggerated stretches that seemed completely disconnected from any traditional warm-up routine. A one-legged hop here, a backflip there, and then, just to really throw everyone off, she spun in place, holding a finger to her lips, making an SH sound like she was in the middle of some sacred ritual. Energy-based beings, whose bodies flicker with fluctuating pulses, exchanged confused glances. A few crystalline competitors, who had just finished perfecting their balance and chi alignment, quivered slightly. Their internal harmonics wobbled in response to Kara's unorthodox movements, and what appeared to be a quiet snicker rippled through their shimmering forms. Kara didn't care. She was already deep in her own headspace, preparing for the tournament in the only way she knew how, by not taking it too seriously. As she finished her spontaneous routine, she stood up, dusted herself off, and grabbed her gym bag. "All right," she muttered to herself, "I'm good. Let's go blow some minds." The contrast between Kara's carefree, unpredictable approach and precise, rigid nature of her competitors couldn't have been starker. Every move she made seemed designed to throw others off balance. Because, for her, chaos wasn't something to control. It was something to embrace. As she passed by the tournament officials, one of them, a stone-faced Anderdan, offered a polite nod. May the best fighter win. That's me, by the way, Kara said with a wink. She threw a thumb over her shoulder, casually tossing her empty coffee cup into a recycling bin. But no pressure. The officials stared at her, their perfectly practiced professionalism slipping for a moment. Kara wasn't just a participant in the convergence. She was already turning it upside down, one unpredictable move at a time. The first round of matches in the Celestial Convergence had begun, and Kara Reynolds was already making waves. Her opponents, each a master in their own right, were eager to show their skills. But no one had prepared for the chaos she was about to unleash. Kara's first opponent was a Trontarian named VY Kalor, a being made entirely of shifting liquid metal. VY Kalor's strategy was simple, overwhelming force. He could manipulate his body to become a living weapon, morphing into spikes, blades, or even a shield of solid metal. A master of brute strength, VY Kalor had earned a reputation across galaxies for reducing entire battlefields to molten slag. The fight began with an explosion of kinetic energy as VY Kalor charged, forming a jagged spear from his body. Kara didn't flinch. Instead, she stood in place, hands on her hips, watching him approach. The crowd gasped, murmuring among themselves. Was she insane? VY Kalor thrust the spear toward her with lightning speed. But instead of dodging or blocking, Kara held up a laser pointer she'd pulled from her bag, shining it directly into his molten eyes. The Trontarian froze mid-motion, his body distorting as the laser light distracted his sensors. "What is this?" he buzzed, unable to recalibrate. Kara took the opportunity to sidestep, casually taking a few steps backward. "Works every time," she said, grinning, and raised her hand. A quick flick of her wrist, and bam! A well-placed laser beam shot out, zapping VY Kalor's exposed core. The liquid metal collapsed, momentarily unstable, and Kara took advantage of the opening. With a quick kick, she sent him skidding out of the ring. The arena erupted in confusion. Had she really just beaten a living metal weapon with a laser pointer? Kara dusted off her hands, stepping to the side as VY Kalor struggled to reform himself. "I'm sorry. Was there a rule against gadgets?" she called out to the tournament officials, who were frantically trying to process what had just happened. In the next match, Kara faces a Nathian shaman, a being capable of manipulating gravitational fields to create intense, localized black holes. The shaman was poised and deliberate, floating effortlessly in the air as he summoned miniature gravitational storms. His every motion was calculated, his mastery over the force of gravity unmatched by any opponent. But Kara, ever the wild card, didn't look worried. As the shaman summoned a black hole to suck her into the void, she pulled out a simple beach ball from her bag and tossed it toward him. The shaman's brow furrowed as the ball bounced off his gravitational field and rolled toward him. He attempted to divert its trajectory with a wave of his hand, but the ball refused to obey, rolling erratically and unpredictably, curving through the unstable gravity he was controlling. Kara grinned. "You didn't think I'd bring only a laser pointer, did you?" The shaman's concentration slipped for just a moment as he tried to calculate the ball's unpredictable path, and that was all Kara needed. She dove, tackling in midair, and the black hole dissipated as they fell to the ground, rolling out of the gravitational field. Kara quickly pinned him, forcing him into an awkward position. Checkmate," she said, not entirely sure of the terminology, but confident enough to be sure of her victory. The Xanathian shaman struggled but ultimately conceded, muttering under his breath as he returned to his feet. Kara gave him a friendly pat on the back. "Great technique, really. I'll need to work on my gravity skills for next time." The crowd was now in a full uproar, most of them still trying to comprehend the wild tactics Kara had just used. The tournament officials exchanged bewildered glances, but Kara's unorthodox moves had become impossible to ignore. She was breezing through the rounds, breaking every tradition and rule that her opponents had followed for centuries. In the stands, a few beings, once skeptical of her abilities, were beginning to reconsider. Maybe chaos wasn't such a bad thing after all. Grandmaster Koros sat in the dimly lit control room, his eyes narrowing as he observed Kara Reynolds' latest match. The quiet hum of the console was the only sound, but it was enough to make the tension palpable. He had watched as she effortlessly dismantled another contender, this time a Skrillian battle mage who could summon storms of psychic energy. Karatha's fingers gripped the edge of his seat, his ancient, calloused hands trembling in frustration. The Skrillian's attack had been flawless, seemingly unavoidable, but Kara had sidestepped the entire onslaught with a move he could only describe as absurd. She'd used a rubber duck, a child's toy. The duck had deflected the psychic energy, scattering it into harmless sparks. The crowd roared with laughter. Karatha's brow furrowed deeper. How was she doing this? He wasn't unfamiliar with underdog stories. He had risen through the ranks, battling against odds, proving the old ways worked. Precision, discipline, mastery over one's power. Kara, however, was something entirely different. She wasn't following the rules. She wasn't even playing the game. She's not fighting with precision. She's fighting with chaos. Karath had spent centuries honing his abilities, perfecting every movement, every strike. His opponents respected tradition. They respected discipline. It was the way of a universe. Power was meant to be refined, controlled, wielded with the grace of a true master. Anything else was undignified, but Kara was proving him wrong. He'd watched as she sprinted across the battlefield, not in a calculated fashion, but in bursts of unrestrained energy, outpacing beings who could manipulate time itself. She was unpredictable, messy even, and yet she kept winning. Every time, a fragment of doubt crept into Karatha's mind. Could her approach really be a threat to his legacy? Could this chaos she embraced truly be the greatest weapon? He clenched his fists, the weight of tradition pressing down on his shoulders. This cannot stand. There is no honor in such unpredictability. There is no respect for the art of combat. But in the quiet of his frustration, a new thought began to take root. What if she's right? For the first time in decades, Karath felt a stirring of something unexpected, a flicker of curiosity mixed with unease. Kara's method defied every rule he held sacred, yet was undeniably effective. In the privacy of his chamber, he muttered to himself, "The future of combat might not lie in the perfect strike. Perhaps it lies in embracing the chaos." But the thought didn't comfort him. It terrified him. I must defeat her, Karath realized, his determination hardening. For the galaxy, for the legacy of true combat, chaos must be destroyed. And so, with a deep breath, he prepared for their inevitable confrontation. The weight of 1,000 years of tradition rested on his shoulders. But what if the real test wasn't just about defeating her? What if, deep down, Karath understood that the greatest challenge was accepting the end of his era? The final round of the Celestial Combat Tournament had arrived, and the air in the vast arena of Nexus Prime buzzed with tension. The stadium, filled to capacity with beings from every corner of the galaxy, was alight with the energy of 100 different species. The ground beneath was a radiant, shifting holographic grid, designed to respond to every move of the combatants, perfect for showcasing both precision and mastery. And yet, all eyes were on the screen, not for the elegant forms of battle, but for the chaotic energy of one human. Kara Reynolds stood at the far end of the arena, adjusting her wristband with a nonchalant smirk. Her stance was anything but traditional. She wasn't meditating, fine-tuning her focus, or preparing in any way that one might expect from a fighter of her caliber. Instead, she was flipping through a book of ancient Earth jokes, mumbling to herself as the countdown to the semifinals began. Does she even know what she's up against? A Karathian elder whispered from his seat. The elders, regarded as the most powerful beings in the galaxy, rarely showed anything less than stoic composure. But Kara's unique approach was beginning to rattle their confidence. Across from her, Master Zadrix, a 7-time champion of the tournament and a species known for their ability to manipulate dark matter, flexed his tendrils in preparation. His eyes glowed with cold, calculated focus, a stark contrast to Kara's carefree demeanor. He was everything the tournament had celebrated for millennia, disciplined, precise, and a master of his craft. The betting odds were firmly stacked in his favor. But then the odds seemed to break. A quiet glitch flickered across the giant screen above the arena, and the betting market began to flash a single cryptic message. Error does not compute. Spectators shifted uncomfortably, murmuring in confusion. A human with no technique, was advancing to the finals? It wasn't just unlikely, it was unprecedented. Kara Reynolds wasn't supposed to be here, and yet there she was. She won every match with no discernible pattern, no formal training, no respect for the established combat philosophies. She used rubber ducks, smoke bombs, and once even a series of loud honks from a broken horn she'd found backstage. The universe's greatest combatants were being outclassed by someone who didn't follow the rules, or even seem to care. In the competitor's preparation room, a group of elite combatants, including Karath himself, gathered around a table. Their holographic screens displayed the shocking stats. Kara's victories, while wildly unconventional, had been effective. Her matches were unpredictable, but somehow she'd always come out on top. "Something's wrong with this," Zadrix muttered, glaring at the screens. His dark matter manipulation was flawless, but it hadn't been enough to overwhelm Kara's sheer randomness. Another elite combatant, a Rovarian battle psychic, tilted his head. Perhaps we are missing something. We've fought on strategy, discipline, power. She fights on chaos. There is no pattern to predict. Karath clenched his fists. His face, usually calm and unshakable, betrayed the unease he felt. The more he studied Kara, the more his belief in traditional combat was challenged. This wasn't a fight against another fighter. It was a fight against everything he'd ever known. As the crowd roared in anticipation, Kara took her place in the center of the arena, her stance casual, her smile mischievous. From the official's booth, a voice echoed through the stadium, announcing the final round. The final battle approaches. The reigning champion, Master Zadrix, against the unpredictable human challenger, Kara Reynolds. In the stands, whispers grew louder. What if she wins? Can chaos truly defeat tradition? As the countdown began, the crowd grew silent in anticipation. But in the pit of their stomachs, everyone knew one thing. Kara Reynolds had broken something beyond the rules. She had shattered their understanding of what combat could be. Karath stood at the edge of the booth, his eyes fixed on the arena below. The stakes were no longer just about winning. This tournament, this galaxy, was on the verge of a shift. The old order was crumbling, and the universe was about to witness a moment that could never be undone. The final battle was about to begin. The arena crackled with energy as Kara Reynolds stood across from Master Zadrix. The final showdown between tradition and chaos poised to unfold. The once immaculate, disciplined arena now seemed to shift and ripple under the tension in the air. The crowd, a cacophony of gasps and murmurs, fell silent in anticipation. This was it, the moment that would redefine the very fabric of combat. Master Zadrix, his form composed of swirling dark matter, rose tall, his tendrils vibrating with focused precision. His eyes, glowing in eerie calm, never left Kara. His combat robes rippled, shaped by the dark matter at his command, an aura of pure power surrounding him. He was the embodiment of centuries of tradition, of calculated strikes and methodical precision. On the opposite side, Kara stretched her arms, yawning loudly. She adjusted her wristband again and, without so much as a glance at her opponent, casually tossed a rubber duck into the air. The bright yellow figure floated lazily across the arena before landing perfectly at her feet. Zadrix's tendrils twitched, his patience thinning. "Ready, human?" he said, his voice deep and resonant, filled with the weight of ancient knowledge. Kara shot him a grin. "Born ready. Just waiting for the coffee guy." The crowd stirred in confusion, and Zadrix's eyes narrowed. Kara wasn't just unpredictable. She was a distraction, and for a moment, it seemed like she might not take this seriously at all. And then the battle began. Zadrix moved first, his tendrils extending in a flurry of dark energy, creating intricate, violent patterns in space. He was a master of control, bending the very fabric of the universe to his will. A single swipe of his hand sent shockwaves of dark energy toward Kara, seeking to crush her in a web of gravity and mass distortion. Kara, however, did something unexpected. She ducked, and not in a graceful, trained manner. No, she threw herself forward, rolled across the floor, and then bounced back up onto her feet in a sort of awkward somersault. Her motion was wild, unpredictable, like a child learning to run for the first time. Zadrix stopped, perplexed. He wasn't used to seeing combatants not adhere to the most basic principles of evasion. But Kara was already at it again, leaping into the air and sending a barrage of confetti-filled smoke bombs into his face. Zadrix recoiled, his tendrils retracting, as the vibrant explosion of colors temporarily blinded him. "Oops, my bad," Kara chirped, her voice too casual for the situation. "I didn't mean to get that in your eyes." Zadrix's glowing eyes flickered in frustration, but his movements became sharper, more aggressive. He summoned a vast black hole above him, a rift in space and time that threatened to swallow everything in its pull. A deep, rumbling hum filled the air as the gravitational forces began to distort reality itself. "You will never defeat tradition with such chaos," Zadrix bellowed, his voice a harsh bark. "I am a product of millennia of discipline. You are nothing more than a jester." Kara's grin widened. "A jester? Oh, no. I'm just trying to keep things interesting." With that, she pulled out a small device from her pocket, a tiny remote control, the kind you'd use to turn on a toy car. She pointed it at the rift and pressed a button. Nothing happened. Zadrix paused mid-attack, eyeing her curiously. "Is that some sort of weapon?" Kara shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe it's just a distraction." The crowd was now leaning forward, confused, eager for the punchline. Then, with surprising pop, the black hole collapsed inward on itself, the energy swirling into a tiny vortex that sucked in Kara's rubber duck. The crowd gasped. Zadrix was momentarily caught off guard. Kara didn't seem to care that the universe's most powerful force was focused on her. She simply jogged around the perimeter of the arena, weaving in and out of Zadrix's dark matter tendrils, as if avoiding a slow-moving wave at the beach. At one point, she stopped and dramatically threw herself into a roll, coming out of it with a perfectly timed pirouette. "Sometimes you just need to throw a little chaos into mix," she called out over her shoulder. "Keeps things fresh." Zadrix's frustration mounted. With a final furious roar, he launched his ultimate technique, a devastating rift that could tear apart the very fabric of the arena. Kara's eyes widened in playful surprise. "Well, that's new," she said, barely moving as the rift surged toward her. But then, at the last second, she threw a button from her wristband into the center of the rift. The button glowed brightly, and in an instant, the rift collapsed, imploding on itself, and everything froze. Zadrix stood still, suspended in time, his expression frozen in a state of disbelief. The crowd gasped. The arena was silent. Kara walked over, brushing off her pants as if she'd just finished a mile workout. She tapped Zadrix lightly on one of his dark matter tendrils. "You know, sometimes tradition can be really predictable," she said, a smile curling at the edges of her lips. "You gotta mix it up to keep it interesting." And with that, the final round ended, not with traditional calculated blow, but with an unpredictable burst of chaos, leaving Zadrix standing frozen, the universe's most disciplined fighter defeated by the very thing he had never understood. The arena fell into a stunned silence as the final echoes of the battle's chaos dissipated. Kara Reynolds stood in the center, her chest heaving with exertion, but her smile never wavered. Across from her, Master Zadrix remained frozen, suspended in time, the very foundation of his combat philosophy shattered. As the time reversal expired, Zadrix slowly regained his form, his tendrils still vibrating with confusion. He took a long moment before meeting Kara's gaze, his glowing eyes reflecting the turbulent storm inside him. You've broken everything I believed in," Zadrix murmured, his voice a blend of awe and frustration. "Tradition, discipline, control. These were the pillars of my power, of my people's power. How could you—" Kara, ever nonchalant, wiped some dust off her shirt and tilted her head. "Sometimes tradition just gets in the way. You know, when you stop trying to predict everything, you might actually get a few surprises." The crowd had erupted into an uproar of confusion, disbelief, and admiration. They had watched the rise of a fighter who had no place in the annals of history, no ancestral techniques to fall back on, yet somehow defeated one of the greatest combatants the universe had ever known. It wasn't just her moves. They were chaotic, unpredictable, and, at times, absurd, but her entire approach was a challenge to the very idea of order in combat. She had defied not only the tournament's rules, but the very concept of what it meant to be a fighter in the first place. In the aftermath of the match, as Kara walked away from the now silent arena, she couldn't help but feel a sense of satisfaction. But it wasn't just about defeating Zadrix. It was about what that victory represented. Sometimes chaos is the answer, she mused aloud, more to herself than anyone else. The galaxy had grown comfortable in its rigidity, believing that only precision, control, and tradition could bring success. But in her unorthodox methods, Kara had proved that innovation, adaptability, and unpredictability were just as powerful. It was a new kind of strength, a strength born from the refusal to be confined by expectations. As the crowd slowly began to disperse, whispers filled the air. Some were skeptical, others were awed. Many now realized the universe's old ways might not hold up for much longer. Could the future of combat be as chaotic and free-form as Kara had made it seem? Back in the quiet halls of the arena, the master of the tournament, an ancient being who had seen eons of combat, approached Kara. His face, etched with centuries of experience, softened as he regarded her. "You've done something unprecedented," he said, his tone reverent. "You've shaken the foundation of our entire combat philosophy, but you've also opened a door we never considered. I don't know if it's a future, but it's certainly something." Kara gave him a sly grin. "Sometimes the best weapons are the ones you don't even know you have." She turned away, her footsteps echoing in the quiet aftermath, leaving a ripple of change in her wake. As the universe watched in stunned amazement, one thing was clear. The rules had been rewritten, and chaos was now the greatest weapon in the galaxy. And as for Kara Reynolds, she was already thinking ahead. What's next, she thought. Maybe I'll try that whole precision thing someday, or maybe I'll just stick to what works. As Kara walked out of the arena, her mind already racing with possibilities, she glanced up at the stars above, each one a reminder of the vastness of the universe she had just begun to disrupt. Back on her ship, the navigation system blinked with a new message, an encrypted transmission from an old ally. She chuckled softly as she read the first line. "So you've really done it now." Kara tapped a few commands, sending a simple reply. Ready for round 2. Far across the galaxy, elite combat academies were already adjusting their curricula. The ancient teachings of precision and control were being questioned, as students and teachers alike began to realize. There was a new way to fight, and it was anything but traditional. But Kara wasn't done. The tournament was only the beginning. The galaxy had seen chaos unleash on a battlefield. But what about when chaos meets the political systems, the hidden empires, or the ruling council? As her ship powered up and jumped into hyperspace, the words lingered in her mind. The real war has just begun. In the distance, the galaxy held its breath, wondering what Kara Reynolds would challenge next. After all, if chaos could defeat tradition, what else could it topple? If you'd like me to share an engaging title and story of my own choice, please let me know in the comments. The next video will be based on the title I suggest. Drop a comment below if you'd love to hear the next thrilling adventure based on my surprise title. Can't wait to see what you all think. Hit that subscribe button and join the adventure. Don't miss out on the next epic story. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for watching, Legends. Stay tuned for more epic stories. And remember, this adventure is just getting started.